Love yourself. Embrace who you are. That's what we're told. That's what is broadcasted to us through every social media outlet and every confidence-boosting video and book. But how? How can you love yourself when you're just different? How can you love yourself when you just don't fit in? What do you do when you can't love yourself because you don't understand who you have become? Hi, my name is Ananya Jain, and what I'm going to be sharing with you today is something that I'm actually quite afraid to talk about, because it's a journey that's very personal to me and something that I've never shared with anyone before. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you my journey to learning to love myself, my journey to becoming me. And I know that I still have a lot of becoming to do. But at a very young age, I realized that you are given a very simple choice in life. The choice between learning and hiding. So let's start at the beginning. I was born in India, and when I was 8 years old, my family and I moved to Luxembourg. As I began integrating myself into my new school, I started making new friends. And in the initial stages of getting to know each other, everything was great. But slowly, this easygoing phase ended, and things started to deteriorate. I learned more about the personalities of these other students, and I realized that a lot of them were actually very tough. In hindsight, I realized that this was probably because they too were struggling to figure out who they were, and were just trying to fit in. But at the time, all I saw was the fact that they would insult and put other people down constantly, just to boost themselves up. I just saw the tough exterior and the intimidating attitude. For example, I remember coming to school one day wearing this new pair of black sneakers that I had been so excited to show my friends. But when I got to school, they looked down at my shoes and just started laughing. I couldn't understand what was happening, and I felt very hurt and very confused. This happened a few more times, like when I came to school with a new pair of jeans or a new haircut, until one day, I finally got sick of it. I was tired of being mocked. I was tired of being ridiculed. I didn't want to feel upset anymore. I didn't want to feel different. I didn't want to come home crying anymore. So I decided that something had to change. But unfortunately, I changed myself. I saw other people fit in by taking part in certain behaviors. So I thought to myself, why not? I decided to abandon my beliefs and my values. I decided to take the easy way out of the situation. Up till this point in my life, I had always tried to be a kind person. I had tried to implement my parents' advice. I had tried to treat others the way I would wish to be treated. But in my eyes, this technique simply wasn't working. So I abandoned the high road, and I decided it was time for a change. I decided that when I was at home, I would continue to be my usual kind self. But when I was at school, I would behave exactly like the other students. Because they couldn't make fun of me if I was exactly like them, right? So the next time someone showed up to school with a new sweater, I pointed at them and I started laughing. And amazingly, the other kids laughed with me. It was a really strange feeling, and it was bittersweet, because on one hand, I finally felt included. I felt accepted. I felt like part of a group. But on the other hand, I knew in the back of my mind that I had made someone else feel unwanted. But I was just a kid, and so excited about my new success, I set about trying to come up with new and creative insults to use, until slowly, this behavior started to become a part of my personality. The insults and mocking remarks came easily to me, and became almost like a second nature. And even though it's still hard for me to admit it to this day, I had in fact become a bully, just like the other kids. And yet, there was always this little voice at the back of my mind telling me, "What are you doing? This is wrong." But at the time, I chose to ignore it, because I told myself I was behaving this way because I didn't have any other options. I told myself that it was just survival mode. I blamed it on the influence of the other students. I managed to convince myself that this behavior wasn't my choice. But today, I realize that we always have a choice. Nobody makes our decisions for us. Every word we speak and everything we do is the result of conscious thought. And we have to own it. We have to take full responsibility for our behaviors because until we can do this, until we can own it, we cannot grow and we cannot develop. We have to take the high road, and I know it's not easy. But I also know that all too often, we lose ourselves by letting ourselves drown in a sense of failure. Or we let our sense of guilt overpower our will to learn. We choose to hide from the consequences of our behavior because we're scared of the willpower and the discomfort it will take to make things right. We're afraid of admitting to ourselves that we're wrong, and we're scared of admitting to ourselves that we lost sight of who we truly are. So I ignored that little voice at the back of my mind because I was afraid. I was afraid to hear it out. I was afraid of the work it would take to change. But the truth is that sooner or later, the consequences of our behavior do catch up to us. For me, this realization came when I noticed this behavior that I had promised myself would just be my at-school behavior start to seep into my everyday life, which was something that I was not willing to jeopardize. So the warning signals got louder, the voice got more insistent until I couldn't ignore it anymore. A switch flipped in my head, and I realized that I did in fact have a choice. I could either hide from the work it would take to change and continue being someone I was not, or I could work and make myself a better person. I could learn. My choice was to learn. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly my life started to change. I remember waking up one morning with this overwhelming sense of guilt that seemed to come out of nowhere. I ran to my parents' room crying, and I slowly, over the next few weeks, all of the little details about everything I had gone through over the past few years came spilling out, until I had told them everything. Together, we decided that I needed a fresh start. For me, consequently, this fresh start came in the form of a new school, because in the public school system here, after 6th grade, you switch schools to go to secondary school. And the timing matched up and turned out I would be going to ISL. It was the perfect opening. But for you, this fresh start could come from something entirely different. You could meet new people by joining an after-school club or a sports team. Or if you have knowingly hurt someone, you could apologize to them and refresh your relationship. You just have to do something that will make you feel well-placed and well-grounded enough to work on yourself. Because in the end, it's not about the people you're with or the environments you're in. It's just about you. So walking into ISL for the first time, I worked on myself. I was determined. I smiled at everyone I passed in the hallway, and I even complimented someone's shoes. What started as a simple goodbye at the end of the day and a thank you the next day became a whole new personality. Kindness eventually took the place of all of the negative tendencies that I had developed. I finally found myself surrounded by friends who lifted me up instead of pushing me down and who made me so happy. I started looking forward to going to school every morning, and at night I would come home and tell my parents about all of the wonderful things that had happened to me throughout the day. Everything was so different, but in such a good way. It took time, it took determination, and it took a lot of kindness. But in the end, all it really took was one very simple choice: choosing to learn rather than to hide. Being kind made me feel connected to those around me in a way that hurting people had not. I know that it's human nature to want to belong, but I realize now that belonging at the cost of hurting someone else only hurt me in the long run. This experience has been the basis of my development over the past 4 years. It's allowed me to grow into a person that I can be proud of. It's allowed me to become me. And I've learned so much. But most of all, I've learned that you should always, always learn from your past behaviors. Because it's human to make mistakes. It's normal to not be perfect. It's not about being perfect. It's about figuring out who you want to become by understanding who you don't want to be. It's like a process of elimination. You see, we have so many choices for who we want to be. You can be a funny person, an outgoing person, or a social person. In order to figure out who you truly are, who you truly want to become, you have to sift through the things about yourself that you don't love so much, that don't make you and those around you feel your best, in order to find your ways to the parts of you that you truly want to develop. that you want to embrace and that you want to love. Thank you.